Slip and fall accidents tonight, and BJ, let me get to you to talk about a little bit about Dramshop,
Sure.
which you can explain what it is.
Sure. The Dramshop action is something you can, if you are injured in a car accident and the driver that injured you had been at a bar or a restaurant and had been drinking, and you can establish, under the law, you have to establish certain things. There are difficult cases, but there is a source of recovery that you might not otherwise have if you don't have adequate for example, or don't have adequate coverage on the other side. You have to prove that the establishment served alcohol to the driver, knowing that while he was noticeably intoxicated, knowing he'd be driving soon, is the way the statute reads.
Okay.
So if they had no idea that he was drunk or any idea he was going to drive away from their store or a restaurant, then they wouldn't be responsible. But that's another very factually intensive type of case, because you have to, just because you get a blood alcohol, you have to figure out how much of that alcohol was consumed at that establishment, and you have to give them, they have to be on notice that he's going to be driving, which is not that hard, because most people drive to restaurants and drive back. Right. But they could, could have walked up to, but that's where the videotaping, for example, can come in handy. Okay. And so if you need, in that type of case, you need a lawyer early on so they can tell that store or restaurant, don't destroy your videos. Okay. And if they do, then there are repercussions called spoliation if they destroy evidence. Okay. But you have to have a lawyer put them on notice, otherwise they can just say, well, we record these record over them every month or every 30 days or whatever.
Yeah, and I was going to get John to talk a little bit about the evidence and 3 important steps that you should take when you're involved with something like that. So is that sometimes why a bartender will cut you off?
They should. It's against the law for him to serve you when you're noticeably intoxicated, knowing you're going to drive. Okay. Okay. And John, you were talking about the evidence earlier and the photos.
Evidence, and I think mentioning the parking lot, a lot of people don't realize that whatever you do in a parking lot is probably being recorded. Most of your malls and major places have every square inch of that parking lot videoed. So you need to have a lawyer quickly. Maybe an automobile accident, as the gentleman had called earlier, but you need to get somebody early, because those tapes roll over and they turn them over and they don't preserve them. So it's really important to get that evidence if you have something in the parking lot, to ask immediately, have your lawyer ask immediately for the video. But another thing, and slip and fall, that may be the most common type of premises liability, and it's usually in some kind of a restaurant or a grocery store. Somebody trips or slips on something on the floor, and one of the first questions we ask is, well, what was it? And they may say, well, gee, I don't know. It was kind of wet and I was hurt, so I really didn't have a chance to sit there and analyze it. But if you have a cell phone and you get into an incident like that, the best thing you can do is preserve it and take photographs of the surroundings, whatever it was you fell in, and the surrounding location, to preserve that, and that'll be helpful to your lawyer.
Okay. And you have to, another helpful thing is always tell the store that you fell, because they'll usually fill out an incident report. Yes. And it makes it much easier dealing with a claim when they've actually acknowledged that an incident occurred. You want to establish that somebody was injured on the premises. And, hopefully, if you're injured, you might not think to do this, but if you can kind of look around and see what's going on, because where the employees were when you fell is going to be important as well. Okay. So if you could, say, well, there was an employee standing right there when I fell, that's a good case, as opposed to I didn't see any employees anywhere around the area where this was on the floor.
Opinions expressed on Law Call are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of 13 WMAZ staff or management, nor any legal or judicial entity. The legal information supplied in this broadcast is general information only and is not intended to be legal advice for any given situation. Do not rely on broadcast information without consulting an attorney. Contingent attorney's fees refers only to those fees charged by the attorneys for legal services. Such fees are not permitted in all types of cases. Court costs and other additional expenses of legal action usually must be paid